we want to work with people who are genuinely trying to make an impact, who have some passion, some care, some empathy for their audience. That just goes so far. It just goes so far because as you know, this is hard work. It's hard work to get in there, to think through, to take time out of your day to create the content and help serve other people. But it's worth it on the back end.
All right, welcome back to the TrustBuilt Podcast. I'm the host, Alan Bennett, and today we've got a special guest. Today we have our guest that's behind the scenes of all of what's being recorded right now, the podcast. This is Bryan Fittin. And I'm saying that with a Southern accent. It is not fitting, and I'm saying it like fitting. It is actually fitting, right?
It is, yeah, absolutely. That's what we always say with the Southern drawl. It's fitting.
It's fitting.
And I've grown up listening, well, it ain't fitting. And, just Southern Arkansas boy, I'll take it. So.
For me, it was like, he bent it, not broke it, right?
Yeah. See, yeah, you get it. You get it.
Yes, you take it under the chin as a kid, right?
Yeah. There are worse last names out there, so I don't mind. I don't mind fitting.
Right. So I really appreciate you taking the time to do this, because this is TrustBuilt Podcast. And I try to bring up trust as much as I can, not necessarily as a self-promotion, but because trust is the currency of business.
Yeah.
And what you do, there's the connection of trust, because the services that you provide, there's a lot of, they have to trust you. Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's credibility.
Yeah.
To me. So in your world, talk a little bit about what that looks like and how you do what you do. I tell you what, let's do this. Let's start with what you do. Mm-hmm. And explain that. And then I just gave it away as to where I'm going with this. So talk a little bit about your company.
That gives me a second to kind of process that, and get a good answer for you. So Go Rogue, essentially, we have Go Rogue Studio here. We have local clients that we record, thought leadership type content, video podcasts, video courses, that type of thing. We learned early on that for a lot of business owners, it was hard to create consistent content. And so we just developed a process to make that easy, just so that way you can actually stand out in your industry as a thought leader and as somebody who is genuinely trying to help and educate customers from more of a sales, consultative sales approach, rather than it being just hardline sales. It's like, let me help educate you. And so that way, you know that I know the problems that you have, and I can speak to them before you even get to me in a discovery call or a sales type meeting. So, but yeah, we do that lots of ways. Video is kind of the main focus, but it is a lot of LinkedIn content. We focus a lot on B2B companies. And then from the video podcasting piece, we only do video from a podcasting standpoint because of that trust and connection. Because if I can see you and I can see your mannerisms, how you operate, you're looking into the camera, that builds connection and trust through that content structure. And so anyway, that's an elevator pitch of who we are. So
right. Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because you talked about you only do podcast if video is involved, right?
Yes, correct.
And it's interesting because I don't listen to a lot of podcasts as much as I watch them. I also look to see, is it on YouTube, right? Because I want to see who's doing the talking. And a lot of, from a viewer standpoint, is how they handle themselves in the way that their nonverbal communication is expressed matters, right?
Yeah.
That whole, communication is 55% nonverbal or something. I'm sure I screwed those facts.
Hey, but you know what? It was in the right direction. So
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the verbal is the smallest part of communicating with others.
Yeah. Yeah.
And quality, clarity. We talk about clarity in business, vision, and all that kind of stuff. But clarity of what people see matters.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. For us, was it and I'm gonna quote something or misquote something. Is it Dale Carnegie that says people need to know, like, and trust you before they buy from you?
Yeah, that's been said. I don't know if it was him.
Yeah, somebody said it. Yeah. So I would say that from our standpoint of being able to know, like, and trust somebody through the video option, or through video now is so huge. I immediately thought of one of our clients. We started as a remote company, so our production facility here, we've only had this studio for about 3.5 years, and so we had some smaller spaces, but we started as a remote side hustle, and so we still have clients all over the nation. But one of them, I was with them at a trade show in Vegas one time. They have a video podcast, and back in the day, it was really hard to convince people to do video, because from a podcasting standpoint, it was all audio. That was the only thing that you did, or like an online radio show. And so when I started looking at, I'm a photographer by nature, and video was kind of second nature to me. And so when we started producing content, I immediately, from a sales guy standpoint, my dad's been in sales for years and years. And so he'd always told me, it's like, it is how you carry yourself. It is that confidence. And so I was thinking, I'm like, well, if we're producing content, we need to be able to have the video aspect for marketing purposes. Like, we can do a whole lot more with the video. And so back to talking about my client, we were walking through a trade show and somebody recognized him from his podcast. And I'm going to tell you something, as somebody who's like, they were paying us to do the content, and then to have somebody randomly say, hey, I watch your show all the time. Didn't know this guy from anywhere. One, it was very validating as a, service provider, right, as a vendor. Yeah. I was like, yes, that's why we do this, but also too, the guy acted like he knew him. And we're not talking about like a celebrity. I mean, it's a very niche podcast. They do a great job, but it was one of those that I could see it kind of light a fire under him of like, oh, this is actually making an impact. We're getting several hundred downloads or views on YouTube, and a couple thousand on downloads and stuff like that. It wasn't a huge podcast, but the fact that it was like making a difference in that person's life was such just a moment in time that I was like, that was super cool to be out randomly and this guy recognized our client from the video side. I'm sure if he'd have been talking, he could probably maybe recognize him from the audio piece, but the video, he had made a connection with him and listened to the advice they've given. I mean, he rolled through a couple different episodes that were his favorite. And so it was just one of those moments. It was again, as a young company, kind of up and coming, kind of fighting against the standard of audio, podcasts are only audio. To have that moment, it was pretty significant for me.
Yeah. So this is what I heard it's about connection. Mm-hmm. So that person connected with him through visual. Yeah. So connection builds trust.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about, I want to stay on that connection piece, but let's talk a little bit about those that airlock, right? When the lights go on and the camera, if they're a client of yours and you're working with them and everything's great, they've got like a script or, I don't know exactly how you do it with some people. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, and we're recording, and like,
it's go time.
So how do you help them? I know there's got to be some compassion in there for them somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we onboard, we usually go through somewhat of an audience discovery, and it's in the marketing space. Most companies have like, who are you serving? What problems are you solving for them? Very much in the video side of things too. So for me, it's a lot of times it's who is on the other side of that camera. And that's, if you can envision one person in the marketing space, it's your avatar or your ideal client or something, your ICP, something like that. And so for me, I'm like, is it John, who's 36 years old, has a wife and a couple kids, and he's in the management field, maybe middle management, and he's driving now to work, or he's getting home from, the kids are in bed and he's watching YouTube and he's watching this podcast. Let me speak directly to John, rather than it feeling like, oh, I have this massive amount of, hundreds and thousands of people that are going to be listening to this. What does it look like to just talk to John? And so for me, if somebody is anxious in front of the camera, because it is, I mean, we've got lights on, our cameras. I mean, everything's happening right now. Actually, for a moment there, I was like, oh no, like I feel that, even though we coach people through this, like, yeah, it's like, ooh, I got a little, this is good. But it is real for people, especially if you've not been in front of the camera a lot. We have that to where it's like, envision that one person, because that then takes it down a notch a little bit too. And it's great if you know who your ideal client is. So if you have somebody that's like ours is Sarah, who we talk to. It's a marketing director usually in our business. And so we know the pain points that Sarah has. And so I know a Sarah and I know her in that space. And so I can talk directly to her. And so for us, that helps kind of ease the anxiety. Anybody who's starting to record themselves, we always say use like social media, so Instagram or Facebook stories, and just walk and talk to the camera and just kind of make it just where there's nobody out there. You're not recording it live. You can delete it. It doesn't matter. But that helps kind of get you used to engaging with a camera and seeing yourself too on the other side of it. So,
yeah, it's interesting you say that. I've never thought of the avatar approach like that. But people have asked me that they say, oh, you seem so comfortable talking with everybody, and it's very calm and comfortable. I've never thought about the avatar part of it. Where I have that connection or the empathy for them is I visualize that the person I'm talking to, I want them to be the hero of the podcast.
Absolutely.
And they have a wife and kids, or a husband and kids, and this episode could be a big deal for them and their business. And it's my job to help not only them, but their family.
Yeah.
And I'm focused more, not on the cameras or whatever's going on here. It's like, how can I best serve this person? Yeah. And I'm focused on them instead of the cameras on me. And, I've got great hair, but I'm like, is it in play? I don't, it's not about me, and some people, it's all about that until the light, and they go,
yeah.
You can see the red come, right?
Yeah.
All that.
Well, and I think good podcast hosts are asking the questions that they know that their listener would want to know. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think a lot of times people get caught up in the production of it. They get caught up in making sure I'm perfect, making sure every single question and we follow a structure. I mean, you have a great structure of your podcast too, but it's more or less like we were talking about before we started recording. You're like, I like to know where I'm going with it, but also open up to the conversation and see where that leads, because that's what makes a good show is genuine curiosity from you. And we've worked with some phenomenal people. I've listened to some great podcasts, but there are those podcasts out there that they follow the rigid structure. And I, on the other side as a listener, I'm like, why didn't you ask this question? Or why didn't you follow up with whatever, go deeper into that question? Because a lot of times that's where you get the better answer, is when it is that second or third question into that initial surface level question. And just natural human nature is we don't necessarily go into the details immediately. We'll wait until somebody prompts us again, and we're like, oh, let me think about that and go a little bit deeper. And that's usually where you get the good answers. But like yourself, you have that genuine curiosity, to know, hey, where do I want this conversation to go? But also, like, I want to know about that. So tell me a little bit more.
Yeah. This world that you live in the video content and podcasting, and I'm just using podcasts because there's more than just podcasting that you do, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah. We focus a lot on thought leadership as well. So people who are trying to make an impact as a leader through education, that's kind of the main go-to, or just even, how to improve, leadership structures, management, sales, operations, whatever that looks like, and tap into a lot of their knowledge that's in their head and they're trying to get it out. We have a system that we can kind of tweak a little bit and ask the right questions to get those answers out of their head to be able to make, LinkedIn content, YouTube content, that type of thing.
Right. So it's so, and I'm paraphrasing here. Do you help them create a system that they can record? Like, let's just take, for example, I work with businesses that have an onboarding process for employees. Mm-hmm. They have an onboarding process for clients or customers. Do you do video content where you can record them on, here's the steps that you need to take to do whatever it is that you do?
Yeah. So So what we will do is actually be the producer for them. So we can strategize with them, we can script with them. If they say, "Hey, here is our onboarding process," we can record that virtually, or we can film in our studio or on location at their business. And so a lot of times we're not necessarily educating them to record it. We fill that spot of like, we don't want you to have to learn all the things, because there is a learning curve with any type of content creation. And so we want to be able to step in and be like, you do what's best. You're the business owner, or you're the HR director, or whatever it is. Let us just take care of the back end, and you just do what you do best, which is leading people, educating people. And we just make sure that they're comfortable in front of the camera and whatever the initiative is. And we try to make content that's not super long. We want it to be impactful. People get what they can out of it without it being, you've worked for companies as well where you sit down and watch the training videos, and it's just mind numbing, you know?
Oh my God.
Yeah. And you're watching somebody talk directly to the camera for 30 minutes, and you're like, this is absolutely terrible. So I've been on a mission to make content way more engaging and way more beneficial for the viewer. So
yeah. You know, it's funny you bring that up, because I know in my previous life, right out of college, I worked in the pulp and paper industry, and in order to gain access to step foot inside the paper mill, you had to watch a training video. And sometimes it was like, shoot me now, right? It was just, the information was good and pertinent and it's for your safety, right? But the delivery of it So I guess where I'm going with that story is to get those people to return to you for the next project. How does that look in your world?
Yeah. Well, up front, we want to find out, what are you trying to accomplish? Like, are you trying to, employee retention or get them into the field quicker? Or if we're talking about training videos, or if we're talking about just a commercial, like before starting Go Rogue, I'd worked on quite a few video projects that we just made very pretty videos, and they were nice and they look great. And, but then I would come back and say, "Hey, what did you guys use that for?" And they're like, "Well, we put it on YouTube." Or, "Yeah, we showed it that one time at the conference," but they didn't really do anything else with it. And so for me, I want to maximize every single piece of content that we can. So if you make a long form video, we want to chop it up. We want to make it into graphics. We want to make it into, digital shorts. We want to make it into, documents if we can, a white paper, an audio recording, whatever we can get out of that video. We want to maximize as much as we can with that content. And so for us, when clients come back to us, there are a lot of times they're not thinking, I want to do a lot more with this. They're like, "Hey, we need a 30-second commercial," or "I need 3 different Facebook ads," or, we want to start a podcast. A lot of times it's, how can we take that and maximize it for them so they get the most on their investment, right? But also it's like, what else is possible in this to, again, create that consistent content that they know that they need. And, but a lot of times they don't set it up that well in the beginning. It's just like, this is the campaign we're running. We need this one piece of content. We try to then say, well, what are the possibilities that, what else could you do with this? And I think once you get somebody into that headspace of like, oh yeah, what will we be doing in 6 months? Not just right now. It's like, what is that consistency that you're going to stay front of mind for your potential clients? Because you don't just want to be the Super Bowl commercial where somebody sees it one time and then you spent $4 million and now it's not going anywhere. It's like, no, take that money, invest it into just keeping consistent content coming out. And a lot of times, like I said, once you get somebody thinking about that, our clients, a lot of times they'll come up with their own ideas, which is great. That's the point. We just want to be the initiator of like, think of the possibilities, and then they come at it with, "Oh, I've got all these ideas that we can do." So,
well, it's interesting. And where, when you were telling this, maybe I'm hungry, but I was thinking about Cajun cooking. So the Cajuns are known for making a meal out of something that most folks wouldn't make a meal out of, right? Yep. And that's what you're talking about. And again, maybe I am hungry, but it's taking what some people might discard or may not see value in, and creating a dish that it might actually turn into gumbo, right? Yeah. Gumbo started out as all the trash went in there, throw a roux and maybe some rice, and you've got a meal. And now it could be the feature.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, my wife's from Louisiana, so a lot of her family. So I've had some good gumbo. Right. I would agree, and I think for us, we have really tried to develop on the front end that yes, we can get all of what we can out of it, but what is the process ahead of time that we know? Like even questions, it's like a lot of times with our guests or with even working with executives in that space, we want to ask very specific questions with the end in mind. I know that we're going to create a 7 graphic carousel out of this. That's a step-by-step process. So I'm going to ask you a question in a way that I know I want to get what I can on the back end to be able to create what we can. So rather than it just be like, well, we hope we get what we can get, it is, we spend enough time with our clients to understand what they're trying to communicate. And then also too, what their ideal client, what they're going to be looking for, what problems they have, internal, external problems. We want to show empathy, but also authority. Like there's a way that we want to structure how we collect that content. So that way it may look like gumbo or a whole bunch of stuff thrown in there, but at the end it's like, well, this is pretty good.
Yeah. So what we're talking about now is competency. Right? Being competent, and that builds trust. Yeah. So we've talked about connection and compassion or empathy, and now it's competency and knowing your craft well enough to know how to find the meat on the bone, so to speak. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. That's you mentioned earlier making your listener the hero, right? I mean, it's the tale is all the time, but the hero's journey is a lot of times what we follow when we're doing even a customer interview, setting up a podcast. So you have your hero, and then they meet a guide. The hero has a problem, so it's your Luke Skywalker and Yoda. He meets Yoda, and all of a sudden, oh, well, let me help you, let me guide you. But they have this problem, and they're on this journey. And so we want to act just like you are as the guide in that, but we're also showing that authority. So you talked about the empathy and authority piece. Hey, I've been there. I struggled with this as well. I was in the spot of, we don't know how to create consistent content, but we figured out this system and now we are able to do that. So let me show you, let me guide you through this process. And so a lot of times people, especially businesses, just focus on me. Like you can still show and talk about yourself without talking about you. You can just say, hey, I can relate. You've got this problem. We were able to figure it out. This is how we do it. And we would love to help you and guide you through that process.
Yeah. And I'm going to pivot just a little bit here. We've been talking about clients and the people that we serve, but also that same concept is how we're going to build teams in order to scale up and do more of what, how do we serve more? Yeah. And with you, and of course, you got a great team here that's doing a lot because you're here talking to me. So somebody else is doing all the inside. So talk about what scaling looks like or what growing the business looks like from a context in your world.
Yeah. Well, we were joking ahead of time. I was talking about lighting and and they were just like, Bryan, calm down, man. Like, let us do our job. That's where I get in trouble. I get too nitpicky about stuff. And, but that's when you've got good people too. One, you hire them because you trust them to do the job well. That's hard for a business owner to step out of, I think you've had a guest before too, talk about the sales team. Like if the owner is the only salesperson, like that's not good. Like you got to be able to step out of that role. And so, I think for me early on, I actually had a corporate job from the corporate world for 15 years and started this as a side hustle, excuse me. And as I needed people, I could, because I was working 40 plus hours a week. And so I would do the nights and weekends, the hustle, the grind, but I needed people to step into that role. And so, Dan Martell, I don't know if you follow him. He's an author, but he's also, he's talked about like the hiring ladder and understanding like you're kind of, if you're looking to scale, there's kind of admin stuff that needs to happen first. So getting an assistant or an operations person, then moving into the sales and marketing piece, and kind of, again, removing yourself from that. So Buy Back Your Time. It's a great book, phenomenal book. And so when I look at scaling, I'm going to reference another book, but 10X is easier than 2X. Another great book. That mindset shift of like, what if we doubled our clients, what does that look like? Well, it looks like double the work and double the problems and whatever it is, right? And you're like, oh, I got to figure out all this stuff. But if you're going to 10X, what a 10 times the amount of clients look like? Well, that's a whole different company. And so for me, it has been like, one, finding the people that care, because this team, they care. And so you can't put that into people. You need to obviously be able to hire somebody that cares about the clients and cares about the content and everything. Because you can train. We can help you with the skill issue. We can't help you with the will issue. And so for me, it's finding those people, but following somewhat of the people who have done it in the past. Understanding that hiring ladder, understanding the operations piece, and every business is different. But I think it's one of those that, well, I'll say this, like we are looking for additional team members, and our first resource is our network. It's who do we know in our network that we could tap on the shoulder and say, we know your work ethic, we know who you are, we know, and be able to bring them into the company outside of posting Indeed and LinkedIn and all the places too. We've done that. But for me, it's who do we know in our network that could be a good fit within the company first, rather than it be who is just the ultimate skilled person. So I know, and again, we're a smallish company, so that's easier said than done. Larger companies, it's obviously a little bit tougher to do. But if you have that mindset of, if we're going to scale 10X, we have to obviously change our way of thinking and processes that we're doing right now.
Yeah, you mentioned teaching the skills, skills and knowledge. What I always find is people tend to hire on skills and knowledge, but they always fire on attitude.
Yep. And the behavior. Yeah.
And getting that shift to get the business owner to hire on attitude. And there's some skills and knowledge that needs to be, depending on the type of job that they're doing, there still needs to be a certain level there, right? They need to understand that this is how you turn a computer on or whatever it is. Yeah. But it's the attitude. That's the magic behind thriving as an organization and growing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've learned I managed quite a few people in the corporate world and have had people in my business as well. A lot of times, if you do genuinely care about somebody as your team and you want to see them grow, invest in them, invest in the training. There's only been a few times where people don't have the skills necessarily for the job, and they can kind of see the writing on the wall. And it's not been hey, I'm letting you go because of the skills. They're like, I'm just not good at this. And we talk about self-awareness. Like, they're able to say, like, I don't think this is the right fit. And we both come to that conclusion rather than it being, let's sit down and continue to have these conversations. But I will say, for somebody based on behavior, like, again, you cannot teach somebody to care. If they just don't care, it doesn't matter how skilled they are or talented they are. You're always going to have problems. And I used to have a lot of top salespeople that were crushing it. And it's hard when you're like, I'm going to take a hit as an owner, or even in the corporate world, of like, this is our top guy, but they are just terrible. They bring toxic, behaviors to the culture, and nobody likes to be around them, and nobody likes to work, and all the things. And so that's usually, you've got to get those people out of your business as soon as you can, because the rest of the team cannot thrive if you have that bad apple. So.
Yeah, I'll share a short story. I think it's going to be short anyway. Yeah. The first retiree that I hired when I had my catering business, the first retiree that I hired, I didn't go looking for a retiree. This guy worked with my stepfather at the time, and he said, I heard that you're looking for a cashier. I'm like, yeah. And so he's got granddaughters. That's what I'm thinking. Oh, he's got granddaughters. One of them's looking for a job. He starts asking about the job and what are the requirements and all that. And I thought, oh yeah, man, one of his granddaughters, they'd be awesome. They're great. They're friendly. I'm going through, this is what's going on in the back of my mind. I'm not listening to him anymore. I'm thinking, I've already got this thing sold, right? Well, it turns out he wanted the job. He's retired. This guy lived in a $500,000 home, drove a Mercedes, and and so now I'm sure he can see the confusion on my face. Like, he goes, Alan, I have been married 42 years, and if I don't get out of the house for at least 6 hours a day, I don't think I'll make it to 43. So I hired this guy. I'm like, this will never work. Well, I tell you that story to say he had a reason to come to work. It wasn't the money for him. It wasn't about the money. And I needed somebody who cared. I didn't know that at the time. I thought I just needed a cashier, somebody to ring the sales or whatever, to fill out forms or whatever. And once I dissected that and understood that, then I started looking for more retirees. I like, who are the old folks, you know? And I was joking, but once you understand that, what that means, whether it's somebody that's a retiree or somebody that's 20 years old that wants that, wants the attitude and wants to be there, that's when the magic happens, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. No, I 100% agree, and it is. I'm gonna tell you, I've made some bad hires over my time, made some really good ones, and it's a people thing, and you go with your gut more than anything else. Even, I mean, people have been great on resume. I had long time ago, I had somebody that was great on the resume, like on paper they were fantastic, and then they showed up to work almost a completely different person. And my gut was telling me like, this just doesn't feel right. But it was like, it looks, everything looks great. And so, I again, you probably same thing, kind of go with your gut when you had that moment where it's like, oh, this is a person that interesting. I want to try this out. Let's see what this, like, whatever that was, always follow that, because most of the time, especially with people, you should be able to figure that out, and be able to make some good hires. And again, it's also, everything's kind of an experiment, as you know, in this space.
Yeah.
And that you can never just, well, this is the formula, we did it, and we're going to follow exactly that formula. Maybe some processes like that, but when it comes to people are all over the place. So
yeah, it's funny. I hadn't thought about this until just now. So I coach trap shooting. I coach high school kids trap shooting. I coach CrossFit, and I do business coaching. The one thing that I found that is common amongst those three is helping them see how they're winning. And what that is let's say they're trap shooting and they're trying to hit this target. They've got a shotgun and the clay target flies out and they're going to shoot this target. The thing that when they finally hit the target that they're, hard left or whatever, they're trying to hit and they finally hit it, that's when I stop them. I like, freeze. What was going through your mind? Recall. I want you to just relish this moment and understand what were you, think about your body. How were your feet? How were you holding it? What were you thinking? How were you breathing? Try to relive that moment all over again to try to hit the next target, and it's the power of the moment. And that's in trap shooting. But the same thing happens when it comes to hiring people or bringing on clients. When things hit, embracing that moment, right?
Yeah.
So in this world of, podcasting for me, as we come in here, there's some magic that happens in those moments.
Yeah.
And when you capture that, talk a little bit, share. I know you got some story, right? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I know, when you see that magic happen, what does that look like?
Yeah, I'll tell you a personal thing that's happening with me right now too, because I have a mastermind group, and we talk through some of these things as well as mindsets. And I think it always sounded kind of frou-frou back in the day. It's like, yeah, think positive. It's not necessarily like manifesting, I'm going to be a millionaire tomorrow, nothing like that. But it is it's so important to have that mindset, that positive mindset, because I'm the worst. I'm the negative. I'll say those things. I mean, everybody says those bad things about themselves. But if you can shift that, and so personally, I was saying my personal revelation here is, what if everything goes right? I'm very much a pessimistic, so I'm not one to take, as a business owner, take big risks, and like the biggest risk you can take is being an entrepreneur, right? So, but in this space, it's I'm always looking at what could go wrong and focusing on that to get out ahead of it. And so I think for me is how can, what could actually go right? What if everything went right? And so we have had those moments within the business. And recently we onboarded a new podcast client, and we were walking through the audience discovery process, right? And what that looked like. And they actually hadn't even really set it up for their company. And so what was interesting is all of a sudden we started to uncover, this is like a deeper thing. This is not just about your podcast, right? And I'm going to tell you something, walking somebody through that exercise, we do a 2-hour kind of strategy meeting, and walking somebody through that exercise, and all of a sudden, the light switched and it went off, and they said this, and the other team members like, oh yeah, that too. And I think for me, it was one of those moments of like, I believe in what we do. And you see it work, but a lot of times we don't stop and recognize it. And so for me, in that moment they were very excited. It got so much more clarity for them as well. And I was like, how do I recreate that? I want to chase that. I want to chase that feeling. I want to chase that for them, because as a business owner, when you bring that value to them, or just even the team, we've had several situations where the team goes above and beyond. I'll call it leaving Lucas. He's our marketing specialist, but he just has made moments for people renting our studio space or working with our team. Just personal people saying, hey, Lucas was great. He really cared about what I wanted, made sure to show attention to the details, that type of thing. And so for me, it's when that happens as an owner, you're like, oh, that's awesome. And I was like, I don't think I taught that. I was just, that was him being him, because he's a genuine person. And so that surround yourself with people like that are trying to solve the problems of your clients that maybe they don't even know that they have.
Right. Yeah, I see, just to put people in two categories, I'm going to generalize. There's the task-oriented type people, and then there's the people-oriented type people that they migrate more towards that. And as a business coach, I try to quickly identify, which bucket am I living in here, and helping them see the other side in a way that they can see it. So, as they say, communication takes place on the listener's terms. You have to speak the language that they can hear in order to make that magic happen. And that's one of the things that I see people, when they get that aha moment, they're like, oh, I get it now, right? And that light bulb, you almost see it above their head. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's what you're talking about with your client, that aha moment. Yeah. And that's compassion. Yeah. A lot of that is compassion.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would even say that the empathy piece too, that's one of our core values. It's such a very honestly weird core value to have, but it is fair for us. It's, can we put ourselves in our client's shoes? What are they struggling with? What do they need from a communication standpoint? And we're not perfect by any means, but we want to strive to be that. And we're going through a book, The Communication Code, by Jeremy Klubicek. Sorry, Jeremy, if you're out there, you're in the last name. But he the communication code, and talking about like, what are you looking for when we're going into a conversation? I'm looking for clarity. I'm just looking to clarify what you're saying, or I'm looking for collaboration. Or I'm looking for you just to sit and listen. I'm not actually looking for, I just need to process something out with you, and kind of setting those expectations up front is good for your clients. And it's also good for your marriage. I've learned too. It's like, what am I looking for in this moment? Right. But you mentioned like being able to find those people of like, are you kind of that feeler or people person, or are you more the thinker of behind? And there's so much value in both. If you find somebody that just wants to be that person that sits behind a computer and just knocks out tasks every day, very valuable. I'm not going to put you in front of any kind of client or any kind of situation, because they're not going to thrive there and they're not going to enjoy their job. But you get those people that are feelers. It's like you finding that, I think that's smart, putting them in either bucket. Like, do you enjoy that? Oh yeah, absolutely. I want to be talking and having coffees with everybody. Mm-hmm. Great. Let's put you in that spot that you can thrive, rather than energy draining behind a computer or working through forms and stuff like that. So, but there are definitely both types of people.
Yeah, I married my opposite. I'm a people person, and I a little task oriented, but in the world of DISC, I'm a high I, high D.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My wife is a high C, high S. It completely, we've been married, it'll be 34 years this summer.
Yeah.
And they're like, I do not understand it, right? How this, but we see the other strengths.
Yeah.
And being able to recognize the strength that someone brings to a relationship, whether we're talking about marriage or we're talking about clients or employees, understanding and appreciating the strength that someone, the superpower that they have that you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, that's so needed. We're big EOS people as well, and following that structure, visionary integrator, which are totally opposite, in truest forms. I say it's just Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak of Apple, right? They're just two different people, but they both needed each other to make a company work. And I agree with you in the marriage piece. Anytime you get somebody they're too much alike, it's not always been a good result on the end, you know what I mean? Because you got two marketing people just going like nobody's getting anything done. They're just out having a bunch of conversations, but no work's getting done, right? And so I know that I need those people in my life, and I know that they need me as well, which I think is a lot of times we don't recognize. So
that insight for the value there, and the one thing that I think personally gets overlooked is the strength that the clients have, and helping them see their strength when you have that knowledge, even though it's not necessarily a monetary transaction. Showing that to a client that there's some strengths that they possess is where that added value is. It's more than just hiring, like for you, it's more than just hiring you to help me do my podcast. It's somebody that understands it. They get me, right? Yeah. And to me, that brings on a connection, and that tells me that there's a person of good character that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mentioned my father in the past, but he a phenomenal sales guy. Never even intended to be into sales, but I ran, sales marketing teams. And he'd always say, he's like, you have friends, not clients. Make sure that you have friends, not clients. And that is telling of his life. That guy he's just like known around town, it's, he's like, oh, I've got somebody for you. Somebody will mention something. Oh, I've got an old client of mine that has, whatever it is. And so, it very much is that connection piece. And that's why I just watched him. And as you grow up and you watch your parents or people in your life, you don't think anything of it. But now that I'm in the business world, it's like, now I have built my company off of that. Like we have longtime clients that are friends. I consider them friends. You know what I mean? Like, we have hung out together before, obviously there's lines and boundaries and whatnot too. But, I know that if I need something, I can text them. They've texted me and called me for just personal things. And I love helping them. And so, I think if you can not look at clients as so transactional, and that you want to have a relationship with them and to see their strengths, and how you can help if they have a weakness, we're all humans and all people. And if you can be authentic in that, your business will succeed. I joke that this was kind of accidental. I never really intended on building this company, but it's like, it just kind of helped. And I genuinely want to help people with their content problems and needs, because it's a learning curve. And so for us, how can we make that barrier of entry so low that you can get your message out there without having to jump all the hurdles and do all the things? So that way, again, you can focus on what you're good at, and amplify our client strengths,
Yeah. You mentioned friends, clients being friends, and that's trust. Yeah. Right. Because you trust your friends, right? Yep. You can say something to them that they may not necessarily like, and they're not going to hate you for it. They're not going to get wrapped around the axle when, you're saying something not to hurt them, but something that they need to understand and appreciate. And friendship is trust. That is plain and simple. That is exactly what it is. Nothing more than that. It's about trust. In being trust focused, I know we're on the TrustBuilt podcast, but being trust focused has never steered anybody wrong, right? And that's the story you're telling.
Yeah, yeah. This is say it's gone wrong in the past, but I'm very much a guy that trusts up front. I'm not necessarily a guy that's like, you have to earn my trust. I'm very I'm going to trust you. I'm going to take you at your word and believe you. And so that's not always been the case because not everybody is true to their word, and that's okay. And I've not always been either myself, but it is one of those things that you're trying to do. And I think with that trust factor, it's always been better for me on the back end to put trust in somebody first rather than wait for them to, well, you got to build into it. You got to, it's just from a human interaction as well as clients and friends. I want to trust you until you give me a reason not to.
Right.
Yeah,
I'll share a funny story. The one person I know that was slow to trust was my father-in-law, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a daughter, but yeah.
Yep. Oh,
okay.
yeah.
So they're depending on the situation, sometimes they're slower to trust. But there was, when I went to him, I'm old school, so I went to him to get permission to marry his daughter, right? And he and I fished together, we'd hunt together, we had a common bond. We both grew up in the same type church, and we both in the same fraternity at Fayetteville.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of connection going on. But when I asked to marry his daughter, that's where I was questioning the trust level. But that's where the bond, when you get to that, it's like this, oh my gosh, I don't know where this is going. And you push past that tense moment, it becomes even stronger.
Yeah.
That's the magic behind it. I won't share the whole story or what he said because I've never used profanity on this podcast. So I'm not going to start now, but there was some profanity used by him, but he was proving a point. Right.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Well, and I think if you've earned that right to be able to ask those questions or push past it, we've been in those situations too, of being able to give maybe harder feedback, especially in this space. You got to be careful if working with somebody, and you have to provide. You're like, hey, I want your content to succeed. I want you to succeed, rather than just me standing back and not saying anything. It might be a little bit of harsh feedback of like, hey, how you direct those questions is not always getting the best answer. So why don't we do it this way? But again, you have to have earned that a little bit to be able to speak into that. Into your client's life or any kind of personal relationship. And so I think for us, it's how can we build that trust ahead of time and then be able to really offer some feedback. And there's sometimes where clients say, hey, up front, tell me what I'm doing wrong. I want to do it right. So tell me. And immediately and you talk about pushing past that point, there's immediate trust that's built. And you're like, okay, now we're on a different level. And it was a lot quicker than what I had intended to be. So
yeah, in not trying to change the subject too much, but once you get to that place with your clients, all of a sudden price isn't as big of an issue. It's not that you're trying to get more out of them. It's not that, but there's some things, technology and things progress, and everybody needs to make more money, but there's also costs go up each year. And to be able to have those types of conversations that, hey, I know that, we've been charging you this and that, but here's some things, it makes it easier to explain. Because you trust them and they trust you, you can explain behind what's going on with the price increases for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And they're going to receive that information better. So tackling that, because that's a hard thing, especially in restaurant business, right? Raising prices. Oh my gosh, we're going to raise it 25 cents. We're going to lose, and nobody's going to buy the cheese dip anymore. Like, I don't know. So
if you've done well with your cheese dip, then people will come back for it, right? It doesn't matter. We've had, especially over the past couple of years of inflation and a lot of things happening, and just stuff where in general it's like, oh, we are having to make some shifts, and because a lot of our expenses are increasing with software, and but I agree, if you have brought the value that you need to bring in that your client sees, then those are conversations that are almost expected a little bit, because they understand too, and it is the cost of doing business. But if you are worried about having that hard conversation, like, well, they may cancel their contract, or they whatever it is, then there probably needs to be a little more trust built. And then as true as it is, even with ours, if that is going to be the factor that cuts our relationship, then we need to take a look at ourselves. Are we bringing enough value? Are we able to provide that, rather than it being like, well, they just don't want to pay more? It's like, we want to make sure that we work with the right people that want to work with us. And it has been, I mean, you have hard conversations in general, and sometimes budgets change and whatever else too, that happens. But overall, most of the time we've had people like, yeah, well, we'll pay it, whatever we need to. Like, they see the value because we are bringing the value on the back end.
It's funny how we've had this conversation around podcasts and trust, and we have gone.
Oh,
we brought in Cajun cooking and in-laws and
some marriage advice out there too.
Advice.
Yeah. I just hit 13 years yesterday. Actually, that was
really?
our 13th year anniversary.
Yeah,
so
congratulations!
We're it's the best it's ever been, and that was I. Even for me, we talked about, somebody was asking me yesterday, and I said, surround yourself with people who don't complain about their wife, right? And all of a sudden you see these level of, specifically men in my life, that hold their marriage at a high standard. And I'm like, I want to be you. I want to make sure I'm in that space. So yeah, sorry. That was a little tidbit. So we talked about, it's like,
yeah, that's the thing is, surrounding yourself with people that you admire. I mean, to me, that's the best advice that I could have heard today, was surround yourself with those that you admire.
I don't ever want to be the smartest guy in the room. Like, at that point, something's really wrong. But ultimately, like, I do want to, because I'm always trying to learn and always trying to be better. And so I want to be the guy that is just soaking up the wisdom as much as I can. So.
I hate to bring this to a close, because this has been a great conversation.
No, this has been great.
But if people that are listening or watching, but hopefully watching,
absolutely.
How do they find you? What is GoRogue.com?
GoRogueStudio.com. That's the easiest place. And then all the socials, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, just Go Rogue Studio. You'll be able to find us there. And personally reach out. I mean, Bryan at Go Rogue Studio. Shoot me an email if there's anything I can help any of your listeners out with. Just even that, I always say I've got 20 minutes for anybody. And so, especially if somebody who's trying to figure out content, how to connect with an audience, how to create engaging content, I'm always, you get me fired up. I'll get excited to talk about that. So
even those that have not done any content whatsoever, they're like, I don't even know if this is for me. You still.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Blank slate. That's good. You have no bad habits, at that point. So
you love a blank canvas, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, that's, well, and again, I make the joke. I'm like, I'm never trying to help somebody buy their second Lamborghini. Nothing wrong with Lamborghinis, but we want to work with people who are genuinely trying to make an impact, who have some passion, some care, some empathy for their audience. That just goes so far. It just goes so far, because as you know, this is hard work. It's hard work to get in there, to think through, to take time out of your day to create the content and help serve other people. But it's worth it on the back end.
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.